Please welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Belinda's channel. Thank you so much for all the love and support. To my returning subscribers, to those people that share my videos, leave commentaries, and also educate each and every one of ours. You guys are the real MVP. So this video on my for you, and I thought to share where the internet is reacting to the fact that Agent Orange has actually doubled down on his take on Gaza, whatsoever that is happening in power. He goes as far as to talk about how they need to empty this place. I'm just going to roll the clip as well as some of other stitches I was able to put together. Please leave me your own thoughts in the comment section of what you think of this video, and please do not forget that we do not support any form of bullying and harassment. We're just here for educational and informative purposes. Alright, lovelies, let's dive into it.
Agent Orange has doubled down on his rhetoric about Gaza. And I see so much shock and outrage over it, and I'm wondering why. Because what he is saying about the Gaza Strip is imperialism, which is an operator of white supremacy. How was the United States of America founded? Manifest Destiny. And for those of you all who do not know, Manifest Destiny is a white supremacist ideology that believes that white people, by divine right, have a claim to everything that they see because they are exceptional. Bottom line, that's what Manifest Destiny is. Do you all not know that Agent Orange invoked Manifest Destiny in his second inaugural speech, talking about the United States planting a flag and claiming the planet of Mars? This talk about acquiring Greenland and making Canada a 51st state, renaming the Gulf of Mexico the Gulf of America. This is Manifest Destiny, good old-fashioned white supremacy and imperialism. All it is just repackaged for the 21st century. Same shit, different generation. And so him talking about clearing out the Gaza Strip from the Palestinians who have lived there for centuries, resettle them to other countries, and then the United States coming in and taking it over. Really what his goal is to not necessarily for the United States to go in Gaza and take it over, but for he and his rich sycophants and cronies to own property there. Do you all think he was joking when he said that he wanted to make Gaza the Mediterranean of the Middle East? There's money to be made, and that is considered by him and his rich friends prime real estate. How is that any different from how white supremacy has historically always operated? That's how the United States was founded. White supremacy said, screw the millions of indigenous people living here already, get rid of them by genocide, by exposing them to diseases that they had never encountered before, by making treaties that were never intended to be honored, to move these pesky indigenous people out of the way because we are by divine right owed this land. And that ideology has not gone anywhere. The United States is my country. You need to go back to where you came from. Spoken by people who were not originally here in the first place. And many of them will proudly tell you where their ancestry came from. Oh, my grandparents came from this nation state in Europe. But then turn around and are quick to tell everybody else, go back to where you came from. Imperialistic white supremacy. That is all that this is. So why are there such reactions of outrage and shock over what Agent Orange is talking about in Gaza? Black folks, we already know about that, because after our ancestors were kidnapped and brought over here and enslaved, there was a movement right before the Civil War to ship us all back to Africa. Abraham Lincoln was a supporter of that. But when that didn't become expedient for him politically, then he decided, oh, well, I'll just free the slaves. And because of the propaganda around the way history is taught about the founding of this nation, he's held up as some hero for black people to admire. I don't think so. Look up how the nation state of Liberia in West Africa was founded, you all.
You know, I keep seeing people say that whatever Trump is doing, he's taking out of Hitler's playbook, but I think that actually misses a really important point. You don't have to go that far back. Everything Trump is doing, Netanyahu has done to the Palestinians. Trump is disappearing people without due process of law and putting them into prison without access to legal counsel. Netanyahu has done that with 10,000 Palestinians, putting them in what's called administrative detention, denying them access to counsel, their families, without any charges, without any due process of law. Trump is defying the Supreme Court, which ruled 9-0 that he has to bring Garcia back. Netanyahu has defied his own Supreme Court and defied the International Court of Justice and defied the International Criminal Court and defied UN resolution after UN resolution. Trump refers to Mexicans and immigrants as vermin and as a disease. Netanyahu and his team refer to Palestinians as human animals that must be eradicated and destroyed. This is why we've pointed out from the beginning that whatever happens in Palestine is a trial run for what they will try over here. And if you want to know how much worse it's going to get, look no further than what Netanyahu is doing to Palestinians right now. Because if our tax dollars can be used to bomb innocent civilians and deny human rights to innocent civilians in Palestine, then you better believe that our government will use our tax dollars to do the same thing here in the United States of America. This is not about left versus right. This is an all-out class warfare of the billionaire elite against working people. Billionaires are using culture wars to divide us from each other. Stop buying into that. Stand in solidarity for the basic human rights and justice of all of us.
Interesting that all the blue MAGA creeps that were crying and whining because I criticized Cory Booker have had nothing to say about an American, a Palestinian American, who was just murdered by the IOF. And guess where he's from, and guess who didn't make a statement about it? Well, would you look at that? He's from New Jersey. Who's the senator from New Jersey? Right. Nothing. He has said nothing about this child's death. This child, who is an American citizen, is from New Jersey, despite the fact that other congresspeople and the governor of New Jersey have put out statements. If you are an American, it is never safe to travel to the Israeli regime or to Palestine in any capacity, because our country does not care if the Israeli regime kills you. They just don't. If something happens to an American citizen in North Korea, like what happened to Otto Warmbier, you better believe the U.S. is going after them. If something happens to an American in Russia, you better believe the U.S. is going after that shit. If an American citizen, though, gets killed by the IOF in the Israeli regime or in Palestine, the U.S. ain't gonna do shit for you. This was something that genuinely shocked me when I first found out about it, when I first realized it. Now, obviously, it's not new, but I had only recently in the last year or so learned about what happened to Rachel Corrie. And then, of course, the fact that there was no justice for Shireen Abu Akleh, who was also an American citizen, or the American that was killed in the World Central Kitchen attack. So don't you dare think that just because you're an American citizen or hold an American passport, that means that you're going to be protected. You won't be, because you know who else had nothing to say about the murder of this boy? Of course, because he met with Netanyahu this week and said nothing. When asked on Tuesday about Amir's death by the Israeli military, they did not acknowledge him by name. Okay, listen to this ridiculous joke of a lie statement from the IOF. During a counter-terrorism activity in the area of Termasaya, IOF soldiers identified 3 terrorists who hurled rocks toward the highway, thus endangering civilians. Okay, pause. First of all, we already know what's happening here, right? They're lying and saying that because everything we don't like is terrorist. They literally call everyone terrorist. Everything is a terrorist. The lamppost is a terrorist. The car, the highway is a terrorist. The rock is a terrorist. Everything to the IOF is Hamas and a terrorist, okay? So just know that. That's what they use every single fucking time. When they killed Shireen Abu Akleh, that's the exact same thing that they use. They use the exact same line, the exact same lie. And then months later, they quietly came out and were like, yeah, it was the IOF. Also, even if let's just say that it was true that the boys were hurling rocks at them. Let's just say that that was true. That's not a should not be a death sentence. You don't get to kill someone because they threw a pebble, bro. The soldiers opened fire toward the terrorists who were endangering civilians, eliminating one of the terrorists and hitting the additional terrorist. How many times can you use terrorists in one fucking statement, bro? Like, they think if they just repeat the word over and over again that we're gonna forget that they murdered a teenager. Ayub Jabara, one of the teenagers that was with Amir on Sunday, was shot 3 times but managed to flee and find help, according to the statement from the community center, whose members spoke to the Ayub's family. Surveillance footage showed that the soldiers fired 47 shots at the 3 boys that were picking almonds, according to the statement. So that's what really happened, and that's what always happens. The boys were minding their own fucking business, they were picking some almonds, and the cowards, the actual terrorists, the IOF, shot at them 47 times. It's a minor miracle that the other boys survived. When asked about it in the briefing, Bruce, whose job it also is to do propaganda and protect the Israeli regime, these were teenagers, Mrs. Bruce said. She noted that reports that the Israeli military believed that they were stopping an act of terrorism. Really, yeah, kind of like what they said about Shireen Abu Akleh and what they say about literally everyone. This is a lawless regime, folks. Absolutely fucking lawless. We need to learn much more about the nature of what happened on the ground. That's funny. You're right. You know what we do? By the way, how is that investigation into the murder of Aishanor going? Because that's the exact same shit that Jake Sullivan and all the hacks under the Biden administration said when Aishanor, another American, was killed by the IOF. You guys were looking into it. How long are we looking into it? Representative Bonnie Watson Coleman of New Jersey called Amir's death an atrocity in a social media post on Monday. The state's governor, Philip D. Murphy, demanded in a statement that the Israeli government provide answers about why Amir had been killed, lamenting the tragic loss of life. What you don't see there is Cory Booker. There absolutely should be a full investigation into this, but given the history of how this stuff works, there probably won't be. Which is why I would advise again to my fellow Americans not to travel there. Now, Amir had been living there, okay? So his family, he's from New Jersey, but his family moved to the occupied West Bank in 2013. And by the way, the friends that he was with were also American, okay? So just remember that. Just keep that in mind. You having an American passport, if you are Arab, if you are Palestinian, will not protect you. And honestly, even if you're white, it will protect you. Just ask the guy from the World Central Kitchen. I am devastated for Amir's family. It is absolutely deplorable. It is disgusting. And I, for one, don't want to be fucking allied with anyone that gets away with killing an American citizen.
You support Palestine and you are like fangirling over Bernie Sanders and AOC, you've completely lost the plot.
She is absolutely 100% correct. And I'm going to go even further. They're not actually helping. Okay? I see that they had that massive rally in LA yesterday and everybody is excited and freaking out. You even have Democratic establishment shills Harry Sisson, who insulted the squad and insulted the progressives, being like, yeah. But here's the thing. Their rallies aren't actually doing anything. What is this Fight Oligarchy tour about? How are they proposing people fight against the oligarchy? By voting for more Democrats who participate in said oligarchy. Like, what are we doing here? And yes, I'm saying this as somebody currently wearing a Bernie Sanders sweatshirt because I don't throw shit away and I haven't been able to sell these yet. You don't even know how much Bernie Sanders fucking merch I have that I've collected since 2016, okay? So don't come in here and try to be like, you just hate Bernie Sanders, okay? I already spent all last week dealing with fucking Blue MAGA as they were crying and whining because they were so butthurt that I was criticizing Cory Booker. So I'm really not in the mood for anybody that is left of those shills coming in and starting to argue with me about AOC and Bernie Sanders, okay? Clearly, as I just explained, I used to be a massive Bernie Sanders supporter. I know this may blow some people's minds, but when a powerful politician starts doing things that are wrong, they should be held accountable. He has shown himself, just like AOC, to be fully willing to sheep herd people into the Democratic Party, no matter how heinous they act. They won't criticize Democrats by name, and when Bernie was asked whether or not AOC should primary Chuck Schumer, he got pissed and wanted to end the interview. Unacceptable. Not only has Bernie Sanders and AOC manufactured consent for this genocide every step of the way, but they were defending Joe Biden staying in the race. Don't forget that. In fact, Bernie Sanders in 2023 voted for a Senate resolution condemning the anti-genocide student protesters, calling them anti-Semitic and repugnant. Okay? So he has participated in this witch hunt and this onslaught against the pro-Palestinian protesters. He has helped bring about what is happening to the pro-Palestinian protesters and Mahmoud Khalil, and so is AOC because she voted for this shit too. And also, Bernie Sanders voted to confirm Marco Rubio. Everybody voted to confirm him, who is the deranged person that deported Mahmoud Khalil and is trying to get him kicked out of the country. There has been no effective opposition to this genocide, whether it be under Biden or under Trump. They're not even fucking pretending to fight him. Bernie Sanders won't even call it a genocide at this late fucking day. So seriously, fuck him. And it's fuck AOC too, because don't think that we forgot about that fucking lie she told on behalf of the Harris campaign, claiming she was working tirelessly for a ceasefire when you knew that was a lie. So I know that a lot of liberals and people on the left, progressives, have a very, very hard time separating their love and their celebrification of politicians from their actual actions. But I'm not playing that game. And like I said, as somebody who used to love Bernie Sanders, supports Bernie Sanders, love AOC, support this squad, fuck them, fuck all of them, because they have helped bring about this moment. The reason why the right wing has been able to be so despicable toward Gaza and the Palestinians has been aided and abetted by the left, by the progressives, by the Democrats, every fucking step of the way, including Bernie Sanders, including AOC. They're not going to do shit. They're not going to do shit to fight oligarchy. They're going to use that energy that they're getting people excited and hopeful about. I've been there. And they're going to redirect that back into the oligarchy via the Democratic Party. Spare me.
DJ Khaled is no longer the most embarrassing Palestinian. It is this guy, Nayib Bukele, whose grandparents were Palestinian Christians and moved to El Salvador from Bethlehem, Jerusalem in 1921. He's the belle of the ball right now, reveling in all of the attention that he's getting from his new powerful friends, Donald Trump and JD Vance. But Bukele, you should be careful and look into what happened the last time there was a leader of a small country that was being paraded around in the White House by a US president. His country is now being carved up and taken over by the Russians. And a similar fate will also happen to you. The machine that you think is a part of you and really likes you will one day turn on you when they no longer need your services or your dungeon in El Salvador. And ironically, Bukele, you might find yourself in that very same dungeon. Either this administration or the administration after it turns on you. And Bukele, you should remember the words of Henry Kissinger, the former US Secretary of State, who went on to say that it is dangerous to be an enemy of the United States of America, but it is downright fatal to be a friend of the US.
So I'm going to need white leftists to listen up. Actually, I'm going to need all of my lovely fellow white people to listen up. This person is saying we need to start seeing how white supremacy culture not only impacts on a personal level, but how the ideology kills people in other countries, essentially. And she's talking about specific genocides. I'm gonna say this as gently as I can. We cannot stop white supremacist ideology from harming people in other countries if we do not unpack the value systems and the things keeping us from forming community and authentic relationships as white people. There is no not only impact us. We have to work on how it impacts us before we can work on how it impacts the world effectively. And I know that sounds... I have watched for the last decade, I have watched well-meaning, passionate white people try to prevent, mitigate, stand against the harms of white supremacy and how it interacts on a world stage and inflicts itself on the world. And I have watched them consistently fail. Not everybody fails, obviously, but I've watched white people consistently fail at this because they have not unpacked their hierarchy, conformity, punishment lenses. They have not unpacked how they relate to other people, and they don't know how to form community. And without learning those things, there is no stopping the ideology from having a worldwide impact. Because we're just going to keep creating the same patterns that have been keeping us ineffective and passive for hundreds of years. Okay? So, this person is not incorrect. White supremacist ideology, colonialist ideology, those things have a real, serious, and terrible impact on non-white countries. But I am telling you that you cannot fix that, you cannot stop that, if you do not know how to unpack that shit in yourself, heal your reactive trauma in yourself, and build community with the people around you. It's simply not going to be effective. So.
Supremacy culture is being weaponized by online leftists as their greatest tool in their arsenal because it's what they rely on. It's what they know. It's what feels comfortable to them because they are wielding the tools. And as Audre Lorde said, the master's tools will never tear down the master's house. If you're not sure the tenets of supremacy culture, perfectionism, either or thinking, fear of open conflict, individualism, objectivity as a default, worship of the written word, urgency and control, and punitiveness, the goal is to punish, much like online leftists says, let's punish the Democratic Party, even though it sets aside harm reduction as a tool of accountability. So one, they use call-out culture as a form of control. It has morphed from calling somebody into public shaming and social policing. They can't understand anybody else's points of view, and it mimics the authoritarianism they complain about from the other side. And people then use that same form of control not to build community or solidarity, but to take someone down. Their wokeness is defined by them taking someone down, silencing them. They also have this infatuation with perfectionism. They are not perfect, but they expect anyone talking on the subject to have a perfect point of view, and that's just not how the world works in the current way it's constructed. And so either you're with us or against us is their mindset. They make no space for people to have nuance and pragmatism. And this doesn't bring people in to help solve whatever issue they're working on. It actually drives people away because they don't want to be associated with people that are faulty in the premises of their action, merely on prima facie by using tools of supremacy culture as an underpinning of what they're doing. But moreover, it's performative. They will also create these moral hierarchies where they suppose that certain voices should be heard on the topic, and typically it's theirs, even though they're not part of the community that they are supposedly speaking for, and people in that community are calling them out for performative activism. We call it cause colonization as a more formal term. There's also this urgency associated with what they do. You got to do it now. You got to say something now. They operate in this microwave society and fail to realize that not everything can be done in this exact moment. And each of these things shuts down dissent, it gatekeeps, it tries to punish people, and then it tries to gain social capital through moral posturing. And you've seen it from a ton of creators. I've tagged a few of them. And what you recognize is none of the people that are doing the harmful things are at the forefront of those harmful things are actually people that are part of the marginalized class that they are supposedly speaking for. And this ends up enforcing this supremacy adjustment dynamic, even in spaces that outwardly oppose them. They use the tools of dominance in the name of liberation, when in all actuality, it is merely a ploy to get their way any way they can. And it is harmful to the liberation of all people. So what's the alternative? What's the alternative? Transformative justice, relational accountability, calling in instead of calling out. Remember that you can only call somebody in if you have their phone number. Centering collective care over individual punishment. That is true too when seeing a set of complex issues across the globe. And finally, holding space for complexity and growth. I hope that helps. I'll try to do something more formal, but I think one of the things I want to name for the sake of naming it is we have some responsibility to make sure that we know that the people that are leading or at the forefront of conversations are one part of that marginalized group, and two, understand the complexities of harm reduction, understand the complexities of using one's voice, understand the complexities of being kind and thoughtful to people in their mistakes, as opposed to what Audre Lorde would frame using the master's tools to try to tear down the master's house.
I seriously love these power people and whosoever that is all around in power and whatsoever that is happening in Gaza really need to chill and cease blaming people that looks like me as the problem that they have. You know, I could vividly remember when all of these things started. We've been stitching it here. There have always been updates about what has been happening and how it started, right? And I could remember vividly well that message from a power woman talking about how Gaza or how people that look like me shouldn't get themselves involved with whatsoever that is happening if they ended up voting for Kamala Harris, right? And now this woman who is all out for people that look like me, of how uninterested they are with whatsoever that is happening in power, keep on blaming black people, right? But this was the same people who have been there for this group of people, who have been, giving some updates, trying to make you understand that the way at which you guys have chosen is not the way. You guys are making a very terrible mistake. But all because of your anti-blackness, you think that whatsoever thing that is going on might not really affect you. You goes beyond, what you're actually bargaining for. And now the person whom you actually thought was going to be the savior is after you guys. This man wants Gaza empty. He wanted it empty. This was the reason why he actually had this Gaza. He want to turn it to a tourist kind of thing. The same thing that you people are fighting for, your freedom, your land, and whatsoever, is being taken away from you with your clear eyes. You are all there looking and watching, and this thing is happening. Let us assume that it was actually the former administration that all of this thing unfolded, and they were like, okay, empty Gaza, let's turn it to so. What do you think that will happen? The internet might not even be enough to the routes of people like this. But now, Agent Orange is doing all his possible best to actually, but no one is saying nothing. Instead of you to focus your energy on what Orange Man or Agent Orange is doing, and try to go to the White House and try to have a conversation with him, making him understand that no, this is our land, and you don't need to. No, you refuse. Everyone is focusing on what black people have to say, or on what. Oh, they are not saying nothing. They are boycotting. They are not boycotting. These people are not even your problem. When it's people that looks like me's problem, nobody want to talk about it. When it's your own problem, you want everybody to talk about it. But these people have their own personal issues lining up. Nobody want to talk about it. And when they are still, okay, minding their business, people don't want to talk about our issues. Let's focus on ourselves and do our thing. People are still mad. People are still angry. What do you want to have these people do? These black people or brown, because I'm done using that term black. I'm not seeing any. I'm seeing brown. Seriously, lovelies. And now, the same thing that you are fighting for is being taken away from you with ease. With ease. This woman that you were all out, canceling people that looks like me for voting for her, was the same person that actually talked about seizing fire. The same person. You thought things could have turned out this way. Let's assume that she is in a position where Agent Orange is. It couldn't have turned out this way, right? But people will still complain. People will still blame her. People will still, okay. That is just the difference. But this Orange Man, it's cool. Everybody's looking and now waiting and looking for other persons to blame. But you already have someone you need to blame, but no, you don't want to blame this person. You want to blame someone else for your choices. Where is Maya, Ayomi? Where is she and the rest of them? They're right there. Okay, all of a sudden now, nobody's even talking about what is happening over there. Nobody cares anymore. Oh my God. Anyway, lovelies, why not just leave me your own thoughts in the comment section of what you think of this video. Please subscribe to this channel if you're yet to do that. Like, and I will see you lovelies when I upload the next one.